Hey guys, welcome to the first set of notes from Chapter 5. So we're actually going to cover two lessons at one time, Lesson 5.1 and 5.2, and you're going to be learning about integers and absolute value. Now, you know you've had a break from doing video notes, there we go. Unfortunately, you are going to be getting several, okay? So, yeah, let's get into this. So we're talking about some exciting things. Exciting. So let's start with, what do I mean by integers? Okay, so we got a lot of vocab in this first set of notes. Usually that happens in our first notes from a chapter. So integers are whole numbers and their opposites. So we're already getting some new words right here. And their opposites. Okay. So what do I mean by whole numbers? They're going to be 0 and the positive counting numbers, which some people call the natural numbers, because you naturally start counting at 1. Now the reason why we have to talk about 0 as not being considered positive, that's because 0 doesn't have a sign. 0 is neutral. He's like the Switzerland of the number world, so he's neither positive nor negative. He's just 0, okay? So that leads me to this statement. 0 has no opposite. Okay? So what are opposites? Well, in this particular case, they're going to be the negative counting numbers. So -1, -2, -3, and so on. Okay. So we're going to be talking about a number line, and we're going to add some stuff on it. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my number line. And it's going to have 0 in the middle. 1, 2, 3. Going to the right. 1, 2, 3. We've got -3, -2, -1. Okay. So we're going to kind of label 4 important things from our notes. I am going to add one more thing to our drawing here. So if I'm talking about -2 and +2, those are what are called opposites. They're the same number, but they have opposite signs. One's positive and one's negative. So the number has to be the same, but the signs are going to be different. Okay? Now, you should recognize this guy in the middle. He's called 0. And 0 separates the positives from the negatives. Okay? And then let's start on the right side. So all of these guys, the 1, the 2, the 3, those are called positive integers. Now, honestly, these numbers aren't so much positive as the sign is telling you where it's located in regards to the 0. So they're always right of 0. That makes them positive. Okay. Now on the other side are the negative counting numbers. So all I'm looking at is the -1, -2, -3. So these are negative integers, excuse me. Negative integers. Okay. And all you need to understand is a number can't have a value of a negative, but what it can have is a location that's opposite to a starting point, okay? So for us, our starting point is 0, so we're on the opposite side from the positives, so we're just left of 0. So numbers that are left of 0, those are negative. Now, bottom line, those signs are just indicating a direction from 0, okay? So we got negative integers, positive integers, 0, and opposites. All right, so let's say that we're going to graph. And we want you to graph 2 points, and we're going to graph them on a number line. So we're going to graph 3. So, by the way, if you don't see a sign, the assumption is it's positive. Okay? And then we're going to graph negative 7. Okay. So let's get these guys all in on a number line. So here's my 0, and then I'm just going to write every other number. Otherwise, if I write all of them, it gets pretty darn messy. Okay, so I'm going to do the positive number in this pretty blue. So when I graph actually on the number line. So when I see a positive 3, it says if I start at 0, I'm going to go 3 to the right, because that's the positive direction. Come on, give me that point in there. Okay, so I'm going 1, 2, 3 to the right. Okay, for the negative 7, let's make that this kind of lilac color. I'm going to go to the left of 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and land right here. And I'm going to graph right on the number line, not above it, not below it, right on it. Okay? Now, you may be seeing some words, and your job would be to describe whether it's a positive situation or a negative situation. So I want to give you 2 types of words. So let's talk about positive integer words and then we'll also talk about negative integer words. So when you hear these words, they're either going to tell you, oh, that's positive or that's negative. Okay, so here we go. So under positive, we have words like above, like we're 12 degrees above 0, gain, profit, making money, deposit, yeah, that means you have money in your account, increase, we have ascend, sorry, the kitty cat was making noise, so Tiana came to rescue her, save, income, money's coming in, and then here's a whole phrase, above sea level. So we live above sea level. If we didn't, we'd be wet. Okay, and then let's talk here about negative integer words. So they're going to be kind of opposite to what we saw on the other side. So instead of above, we're below. A gain would become a deficit, a loss, right? Spend, that's opposite of a profit. Below sea level, that's the opposite of above sea level. Deduct, that means to take away. A loss, we talked about that one. Gain, loss. Descend, opposite of ascend. I descend the stairs in the morning. I ascend to go back up to my bed. And then a withdraw. That's also opposite of deposit. Okay? So those are things that we're going to be looking out for. Now I want to give you one more example of integers that we think of a number line as always being horizontal, but sometimes a number line can be vertical. And that's going to be specifically with temperature. Okay, so with temperature, let's see if I can draw this. Okay, and then we've got like 0 is here, and then we're going to have, let's see, I might need to make that smaller. Okay, so this is 10 degrees. Let's get Kim a little bit bigger. That's your 5 degrees, and then it's going to be 1 degrees in between. So we're going to do the same on the other direction. So this is, we would say, minus 10 degrees, or 10 degrees below 0. Oops, and this would be 5 degrees below 0. Okay? So on a temperature gauge, you are going to be seeing temperatures that are cold. Now for us, this is, we're at, this looks more like a metric one to be honest with you, but that's okay. Gosh, we haven't quite hit freezing because freezing in Fahrenheit is 32 degrees, but we got close a couple nights ago, right? 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's really cold for Orange County. All right. But these, when you do temperature, so I'm going to give you an example of a temperature and then we'll kind of map it on there. If we are at 4 degrees Fahrenheit, we'll say this is Fahrenheit. So that would be right here, 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and what the thermometer would fill up all the way and color in all the way. Okay, so that would be 4 degrees. Now, if you were, let's say, negative 8 degrees, you would be right here. And that one would only fill up to this level and everything below it. Okay? So that's how the thermometer works. So we're going to take some of those words from the other page and we'll kind of go along with the words that are here and we'll kind of practice how I would interpret real world integers. Okay? So if somebody said that they were above sea level, you might represent that with a number like positive 12 feet. Now, do we have to write the positive sign? And the answer is no. Okay, so the opposite to that would be below sea level. We'll just do a couple of these. So let's say that's negative 20 feet. Okay. Let's say we do gain yards. Any football fans out there? That's what you want your team to do, is to gain yards. Okay, so let's say that they gained 10 yards. So we could say positive 10 yards. Whoop, whoop. And then you could have a loss of yards. Again, another football. So let's say they get tackled behind the line of scrimmage. They would take a loss. So that would be considered, they'd show the loss with a negative. So you'd say they lost 5 yards or negative 5 yards. Okay? So those are some of the things that you guys are going to be seeing in the practice, and you're just going to be interpreting. So is it a positive situation or a negative situation? Okay, so then that brings us to absolute value. Absolute value. And you're like, well, not exactly sure what this is. Well, I'm going to tell you. So absolute value is the distance a value is from 0. So with our integers, they tell us how far to the right or how far to the left a number is. Absolute value just says how far are you from 0, okay? So here's what's interesting. If they're asking just how far, then we can only measure with positive numbers. So we're going to get only a positive answer, or it could be 0. How far is 0 from 0? 0. Why do we have to say 0 isn't part of the positives? Remember what we said? Switzerland of the number world, neither positive nor negative. He's neutral. He is 0. Okay? So again, we're going to talk about positive distances are to the right of 0 on a number line. So it's just a direction. I don't know why I spelled that out. Oh well. Okay, and I'm going to box up the two keywords, positive, right, okay, of 0. And then the negative distances are to the left of 0 on the number line. So there, I wrote it as a number this time. Flexibility, right? And again, let's highlight negative goes with left of 0, okay? Now, the symbol for absolute value looks like two lowercase l's. Okay, and that's your absolute value symbols. Okay, so if I gave you this example, I would read it this way. Absolute value of -5. Okay, and basically the question it's asking is how far is -5 from 0? That's the question we need to answer, okay? So if I draw a number line, and oh man, I'm going to do this differently. We're going to skip the numbers because I would have made a huge mess if I drew all of them. Okay, so the question is, how far is -5 from 0? So here's 0, here's negative 5. Okay, and we want to know what that distance is from here to here. And basically, I would be counting 5 units over. Units just mean, I don't even know what I'm measuring in. Feet, miles, inches, meters, centimeters. It's just 5 intervals away from 0. Okay? All right, I'm going to go to the next screen for our examples, and then we'll be done. So we're going to evaluate. Evaluate. And if you forgot, because it's been a little while, value, missing the E at the end, but it pretty much spells the word value. So it's asking us, what is the value of this number? In other words, how far from 0 is it? So this stuff is pretty easy, and that's what you're going to notice about this. It may look sometimes like you have a lot of homework, but there's not a whole heck of a lot of calculations going on, really. So if I have negative 5 and I want to know the absolute value, the answer is going to be 5. Okay? If I want to know what the absolute value of negative 7 is, well, how far away from 0 is it? 7. Okay? What if I want to know how far, or what the absolute value of 3 is? So really that just means how far from 0 is it? 3. It didn't ask me to the right or the left, it just says how far. Okay? Let's get a little trickier. We have the absolute value of 7 minus the absolute value of negative 6. Okay? So, by the way, I'm going to just draw an arrow for a moment and then I'll take it away. This guy right here, that's a subtraction. I'll leave him there. That's a subtraction sign. It's not a negative. It's not telling me a direction. It's telling me an operation. What's happening between those two numbers? Okay, so when I have a math problem like this, job 1, okay, job 1 is to do the absolute value. Or, I'm not sure if the correct word is take the absolute value. Okay. So what I get is the absolute value of 7. 7 is 7 away from 0. And then the minus is still there. And then how far away is negative 6 from 0? The absolute value of negative 6 is 6. Okay? And then we just do the math. All right? And then we get 7 take away 6 is going to equal 1. Okay? And now we have a different one. It says take the absolute value of 7, take away 6. Okay, so notice in number 4, I had 2 different absolute values with a subtraction between the 2 absolute values. Here I have 1 absolute value. So we're going to do the math in the opposite order that we did it last time. So first off, I'm going to do whatever's inside the absolute value. It's a grouping symbol. Okay, so we're going to do the math. So 7 take away 6 is equal to 1. And then we're going to take the absolute value, or find the absolute value. Well, hello, absolute. Well, how far is 1 from 0? It's just 1 away. So there's our answer, is 1. Now, will this happen every time? Will the answer you get match? I don't know. You're going to have to do some problems and see if that's always the case. All right, let's go back. We have one more word I want to make sure that we've got nailed down, and that's the word opposites. We talked about it in our drawing. I don't think I gave a definition to it, so let's go for it. So what are opposites? Let's give a different color. I get tired when it's always the same color. Numbers, the same distance from 0, but on opposite sides of 0. That's why they're opposites, because of their location with regards to 0. So they are the same distance from 0, but they're on opposite sides of 0. Okay, so let's do a couple practice of those. Find the opposite. So let's see, we're on number 6. So -7, it would still be the 7, but now it's going to be positive. So we would say that's going to be 7. Okay, and then let's try one more. Let's say we start with 4. What's the opposite of 4? It's still going to be 4, but this time it's going to have the opposite sign. It's going to be negative. And there you go. All right, we got one more problem. Now this one is a little bit tricky. It's a word problem, so I'm going to turn off for a moment, write it down, come back. I want you to do the same thing, and then carry on with me. Okay, so here's your problem. The seagull is flying 25 feet above sea level. Joe is diving 15 feet below sea level. What is the distance between Joe and the seagull? So what I need you guys to do is go ahead and pause and copy this problem down and then join me back. Okay? So in a problem like this, I like to draw a picture. So we've got sea level. So there's your sea level. We've got a seagull, and that seagull is 25 feet above sea level. Okay, so there's 25 feet. And then we got Joe, and he's below sea level. There's Joe. Joe needs some protective equipment, but we don't have any for him, poor guy. And Joe is diving 15 feet below sea level, okay? So we've got seagull, would be a positive 25 feet. And then we've got Joe, and below means would be interpreted as a negative 15 feet. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take those absolute values of those two numbers, so absolute value of negative 20 or positive 25 feet, and if we're going to go the distance from Joe all the way up to the seagull, we're going to be adding those two distances from below all the way to above. This is how we can do math with negative numbers. So we take their absolute values. So we get 25 feet. That's how far 25 feet is from 0. And we're going to add to it 15 feet, because that's how far from 0 that guy is. And that's going to give me the magic answer of 40 feet. So we could conclude that Joe and the seagull are 40 feet apart. And there you have it. All right, we'll talk about this on next week, and we'll do some practice on it. Thanks, guys. Bye now.